So, so hello everybody. It's nice to meet you all. I'm over on the West Coast. I'm going to talk a little bit about Farm Stay Startup. I do understand that you've already gone through the pieces of it, and then I'm going to do some best practices. I do want to thank Lindsay for inviting me here to present to you guys. I am happy to answer questions after the presentation. I'm going to be using something that I call the Farm Stay Feasibility Toolkit. That'll be the first part of my talk. And it is a PDF, and you'll find it in the references at the end. This is me and my donkey, Paco. We lost him 2 years ago, so I like to remember him and honor him in my photos. In terms of my background, I'm the co-owner of Leaping Lamb Farm and Farm Stay here in Alsea, Oregon. We are about 2 hours south of Portland and about 35 minutes outside of Corvallis, which is Oregon State University, and about an hour from the Pacific Ocean. I'm also the founder of Farm Stay, known as Farm Stay USA. I launched it in 2010 with 2 USDA grants. And I'm also the current North America regional rep for the Global Agritourism Network that all of you should join for free. We launched it in April 2023, and Lindsay is a member of it and can give you more information. So farm and ranch days come in many forms. This is my farm, Leaping Lamb Farm, and I'm using images here that will be from Oregon just because these are in my backyard. But this is a horse ranch, a quarter horse ranch outside of Monmouth. You know, it could be, these people raise goats and sheep. They're up in the mountains outside of Ashland. They offer everything from camping to glamping to this house that you see to a suite that's added onto their farmhouse. Then we've got U-Picks, and I know that a number of you might be U-Picks as well. So we're not all about livestock. We can be about just crop production as well. And maybe you make goat cheese. This is an Airstream that's the lodging for this farm. And I put a ranch in here because when we were first launching Farm Stay, I realized that some places back east call themselves ranches, and some places in the West call themselves farms, and they all look the same. So I consider a farm stay to be a ranch or a farm stay here in the US. And then you would also have crop production like vineyards. I don't have a picture of a vineyard here, but then this is hazelnuts here in Oregon. So why would you offer a farm stay? You know, we do this, basically, I'm diversifying my revenue stream with hospitality because there is a risk to farming that we really can't control, and we can control hospitality a little bit more unless you have something like COVID. So when COVID hit, I lost all of my lodging, but my farming really picked up, and I sold all the meat out of my freezer. So it's a really good balance, I think, because they're two totally different industries. And for a lot of us, it allows us to create a sustainable path for future generations so that we can hire some of our children onto our properties as we expand. And although this isn't financial for the farm, you know, the education for urban guests is actually incalculable because we really need to bridge that gap. If you were to look at the map for farm stay, these are the farm stays that we have listed on our site right now. This is a growing number. This is obviously not all that there are. But I think by putting us all together, it gives us a voice as a new travel niche for the US. And I say new, I mean, there are some farms that have been doing this since the 80s and 90s, but not very many. Most of them are back in New England that started up a long time ago. They did not call themselves farm stays, but that term, I think that we have been successful bringing that term to market. And the fact that Airbnb uses that term means, I guess, we've been successful. So I'm going to start with this toolkit. And I don't know who of you have already started up. So this may seem like a repeat, but then you might also find something where you go, oh, I hadn't thought about that. So these are the items I'm going to cover. And again, I know talking to Lindsay that you've had some information about legal and lodging and marketing. But I'm going to put them all together in one place because the toolkit in the end is something that you can print out and you can check things off. You can fill in notes so that you make sure you've covered all of this. In terms of regulations, permits, licensing, you really have to start with your planning department and find out what you are allowed to do, what your zoning allows. And I always say, I have some tips here. You really need to talk to your neighbors before you go to the planning department and let them know what you're thinking of doing, because if you want to tank getting that permit, just piss off your neighbors. And because they're the ones that are going to get to raise their hand when the planning department comes to everybody around you and says, is this okay with you? The other tip is to ask your planner how you can do this, not if you can do it. If you say, can I do this? That's a yes, no. And once they say no, you really have a hard time crawling back up from that. County building departments, if you're actually building a new building or you're retrofitting a building, what does your septic look like? What does the road look like? What does your water look like? How about fire? And then in terms of a fictitious name registration, this is what people call a DBA, doing business as. So you might be Leaping Lamb Farm LLC, but I am doing business as Leaping Lamb Farm. And so you want to make sure that you're registered with the state. I was talking with Lindsay about this, business, sales, lodging tax, licenses. If you use Airbnb right now, they are handling your lodging tax for you. But if you decide to do your own reservations, you are responsible for collecting that lodging tax and submitting it to, it could be state, it could be county, it could be city, it could be all, it could be none. It's just something you need to find out about in terms of sales tax if you're selling product off of your farm. I would ask, somebody else, another farm stay in your area, another B&B, what they do, or maybe your SBDC down at the bottom, that's Small Business Development Center. Those are in every state. Those are a great resource for you to find out what you need to do at startup. There may be other permits you need: public health and environment, environmental health, that would be water, sewer, public works, that's signs, road access, fire and safety. If you're offering fishing and hunting, you might need permits for that, or a special use if you're on federal or next to federal land. All things that you should just make sure that you've kind of got covered. What I didn't put in here was if you're serving food, you might need to be dealing with your Department of Health. In terms of legal and insurance, as I think it's been covered with you guys, there are different ways to set yourselves up as a business entity. A lot of our farms with us are LLCs, but then you also want to think about having terms and conditions and this release from liability waivers that all of your guests need to sign off on. And terms and conditions would be things like cancellation policies, inappropriate behavior on your farm. What are you allowed to do? Also, even things like check-in time, check-out time. How do people leave the place? My liability waiver, I have that on my reservation form. That is a checkbox that people check off on. My lawyer would like me to have a physical piece of paper. You just have to decide what makes you comfortable. And in terms of insurance, a business liability policy, that's not covered by your farm policy. So a lot of people call it trip and fall insurance. This would be something that you're going to add on to your policy. So you're going to have two, and you may need a broker to help you out with this. I was talking with Lindsay about this agritourism limited liability signs. Gosh, it sounds like yours is fairly complicated. It is good to have these signs up. I put mine in the parking area. I also put them near where my livestock are because I have horses. So this equine inherent risk sign, I'm sure you guys have something like that as well. That's kind of ride at your own risk or be around animals at your own risk. Mine looks like this. And when we made the agreement with the trial lawyers to get this up and running, they said that our letters had to be at a certain height. So make sure you know all of the detail of what needs to be in your sign. Ours in Oregon are consistent. This is the sign. We don't have to put, well, as Lindsay said that she has bees. I don't have to put that I have bees. I just have to have this specific wording. So just check on that. Then in terms of lodging, once you know what you're permitted to do and what you want to do, are you doing 1-star? Are you doing 5-star? Are you going to start with campsites? There's camping, there's glamping, there's using an existing building, or there's building something new. So this is where you try to determine what are you going to do. It can be anything. can be rooms in your farmhouse. It can be a rustic cabin. It can be teepees. It could be RVs, mobile homes, tree houses, tiny houses. And then I put down at the bottom here, pet and livestock facilities. We do have some members who offer stabling for horses or kennels for dogs. There's infrastructure, water, sewer. I mean, just because your septic works for your family, is it going to work for everybody else? Or are you using porta potties, or are you using composting toilets? Are you going to have electricity? Aren't you? You know, if you're camping, excuse me, maybe there's no electricity out of the camping area. What's your parking and road access look like? Can an emergency vehicle make it down the road? Are you going to have RV hookups, camping facilities? Prepared campsites or not, stalls, corrals. And then I put fencing here because are you fencing your animals in and your guests out, or you're fencing your guests in and your animals out? Just make sure that you have that all sorted before you open up. New, remodeled, private communal space. I'll have to say that Americans in terms of communal space are not as open-minded as Europeans are. Private or shared bathrooms, off-grid. Then there are things like internet, cell service, TV. Depends on what you've got set up, what you want to offer, what your guests are asking for. Air conditioning, heating. I don't know, with the way the weather is these days, it just really depends what you can afford, what you're comfortable with, and what you think your guests need. And there's really a long list if you're getting into luxury. Then activities, what are you going to offer? And do you need a permit? Are you going to let people help you with chores? Are you going to charge for that? Half of our group charge for it, half of us don't. Maybe a cattle drive, maybe riding on your property, hunting and fishing, bird watching, tours, classes. You know, it depends on what you like to do. It also depends on what you have time to do, because you are farmer first. But do make sure that you charge fees for these experiences. The helping with chores, I go back and forth on that. I do not charge for chores because people are helping me. But a lot of these things you should charge for, and a lot of us are really bad at charging for our time. So just think of that. In terms of marketing, you need an online presence. So your farm website, social media. You know, we do have some farms that only use their Airbnb for their presence. Websites aren't that hard to do. You can do them yourselves. They're not that expensive anymore. So I would really recommend, even if it's just a one-page site that leads people to your lodging. A Google business listing, that's free as well. Something you really need to think about so that you show up, and so that people can also leave you reviews. And then I always say, make sure your local and state tourism agencies know about you. So you'll see here, here's a website, here's a social media post. I happen to be on this food trail, so I get extra marketing for free with my local tourism agency. And then in terms of online marketing and reservation websites, so there's us, and we are niche marketing. We are not a booking site, we're niche marketing. OTAs, that stands for Online Travel Agency. That's how people will refer to them. Vrbo, HipCamp, Airbnb, all familiar to you, I'm sure. Once you've been doing this for a while, you may not want to be paying these percentages, and you may not want your return guests to have to pay a booking fee. ResNexus, availability online, they're right there in Vermont. OwnerRes, there are many others. You just, these are flat fees that you pay once a year. And people can come right to your website and make that reservation, or they can come to our site and link through and make that reservation. Then there's direct marketing. So don't be shy. Newspapers, news organizations, magazines are looking for ideas. So pitch yourself to travel writers. People love farm stays these days. And then word of mouth is your best advertising, honestly. So this is Farm Stay. This is what I do. We are a multimedia site. We're focused on really getting the farmer and the traveler together in one place. This was a very interesting project that UVM did a couple of years ago. So some of this information might be a little old. But these are some of the different sites that you can get to, and there is a link to this in the references. My pricing right here is wrong, just for instance. But these are a lot of different places where you can be listed. It kind of tells you what they do. Some of these are free. And some of you may be familiar with Harvest Host, where people come in RVs, they can stay for one night for free, but hopefully you're selling them something. Okay, let's get to financials. Startup expenses. These are your kind of one-time expense to just get yourselves going. You got to get your lodging sorted out. You got to get your bedding, your furniture, your appliances, your signage, legal, insurance, marketing, permits, and fees. And then you've got to figure out, what are you going to charge? So how are you going to charge? And I usually say, look at what do you got? What are you offering? What does it cost you to do this? What are similar prices in the area? And then you can decide what you're going to charge. You know, start low. You can always go higher. Don't start too low, but exceeding expectations isn't that hard. And then you raise your prices. And you want to see kind of what will the market bear. In terms of figuring this out, you're looking at, what are you going to charge nightly or weekly per room or per site or per building? How many days per year do you think you can be open? Do you want to be open? Keep it simple. You know, I use one rate. Some people use two rates, weekend and weekday. Some people do high season, low season. Just try to keep it as simple as you can, because guests don't like to have to try to figure it all out. And then, are you going to have a farm store? Are you going to have activities, classes? Are you adding extra amenities? Are you adding meals? All of those things you can add in for setting up what your revenue would be. In terms of expenses, I figure it's about 20 to 30% of revenue. So you can just kind of fit that into your spreadsheet to start with as you're doing your budget. And the easiest way to break it up is, this is what you're going to have to put on your Schedule E, which is rental income on your farm. So it's not part of Schedule F. It's not your farm income. That's not how they see rentals these days. But you could use these and set these up in QuickBooks or however you keep your accounting. And then at the end of the year, you'll have it all there. As an example, net profit loss. So payback at startup. Here's your startup. Say it was $20,000. I just try to make this really easy. Your revenue the first year is $4,500. Your expenses are $1,350. Your net profit is $3,150. Okay, so your payback then, the way you figure it out, you just divide your net profit into your initial startup. It's going to take 6 years to pay it back at this level. Obviously, you will probably do better and better each year, so you will pay back quicker on that initial startup. You have to decide if you're comfortable with that. And then something you don't want to forget about is there are lots of pieces to hospitality. So who's going to do what on your farm? Reservation sales, hosting, touring, cleaning, accounting, marketing, groundkeeping, maybe cooking. This could be one person. I would suggest, if you can give away anything, give away the cleaning. If you want to burn out really quickly on hosting a farm stay, do all the cleaning as well. There are usually people locally who you can get to hire on. Factor that into your cost of doing business. But it's really nice to have somebody else who can do that. Maybe also some of the groundskeeping. Some of these other jobs are in the office jobs that you can figure out how many hours a week you think it'll take you. And then it's a reality check. Do you have the money to start up doing this? Do you have the time? Can you balance this with your farming? Is your family on board? That's a really big one. You got to make sure that everybody's okay with this. I will say I am the host for my farm stay. My husband does a lot of the farming. I do a little bit. If he sees guests coming towards him, he will generally jump on a tractor. But if he gets cornered, he's very friendly. He was on board to do this. This pays our bills. But you want to just make sure that everybody knows what you're doing. And then how long do you anticipate doing this? So B&Bs traditionally 5 to 7 years. I'm seeing right now 10 to 15 years for farm stays. It's not like we're going to go anywhere. Sometimes you just get old or tired. But if yes is the answer, you know what? You're already a rock star. And the really cool thing about hosting guests is that you get to see the farm through their eyes. So when they tell you how gorgeous your farm is, all you've seen are the fences that need to be fixed. they see how beautiful it is and they remind you of what it looked like the very first time you ever saw it. Okay, so now what? How are you going to get those 5-star reviews? How are you going to get repeat guests? And let's confirm that rock star status. Now, and I want to explain right now, these images going forward are of my farm, and I am using the entire screen because photos sell. So you want to think about that in terms of that, how you present yourself to the public. You want to have good photos. You want to share on Instagram. You want to share on Facebook. You want to get people excited about your place. So you're going to see much bigger pictures now. This is my farm. It was a homestead starting in 1890. We have 65 acres in the Coast Range. We are livestock production, lamb for the meat market. We do, however, have large gardens and orchards. We do some sales out of those. I let my guests graze out of our gardens and do not sell the produce to them. We added our farm stay in 2006. We got here in 2003. I thought that lamb and hay was going to pay for the tractor to break down. That was not true. I searched around for other things to do, and then I realized that I wasn't going anywhere. So why wouldn't I maybe think of inviting guests to come on the property as an additional income stream? This is what we offer. We are basically an experiential vacation. I do focus on families. It's peaceful and quiet, though, for individuals. We are not programmed. The guests that we have mostly come out of Portland and Bend, and they are very programmed in their home lives. They love not being programmed. I have people help with chores. That's basically what they do. They get the sights, the smells, the sounds of farm life. We offer clean accommodations, fresh food, curb appeal, friendly animals, friendly people. In the cottage and the farmhouse, everything's provided except for meals. So I focus on good bedding, sharp knives, and cleanliness. Our cupboards are stocked with basics. That would be, when I say basics, olive oil, flour, sugar, salt, pepper. There are games that we do have wireless. We do have books. We have trail maps. We do not have TV. And we have very limited cell coverage. When we talk about hospitality, we're not talking about farming, right? So what did best practices look like? So it's going to be presentation, your farm online and on site. It's going to be amenities, and it's going to be managing expectations. Presentation, presentation, presentation. Website, farm entrance, you're welcome, right? Your website, it should be easy to find. I mean, on Google. Should be easy to contact you. I cannot tell you how irritated I get when I cannot find contact information on websites. And it should be easy to book. So we talk right there. This is our homepage. This is the first thing you see when you come to our site, book a stay. However, if you scroll down, you'll see other things that we do. So we will talk and lead you to where we talk about our pastured meats, activities on and off the farm. We do virtual farm tours these days. That was based on COVID, but we also do regular tours. We have a photo gallery. We show how we have showed up in the news. So we're just trying to create some information for people to know who we are and what we do. So we also use these automated reservations. And, you know, when I started out, I didn't automate my reservations. I did them everything by email. It was early on. It was before Airbnb. This has been a lifesaver. People like to make reservations at times when you're not awake, and this allows them to just do it automatically. If you're not comfortable with that, something to think about to move into. Your on-farm presentation, though, starts here, right at your front gate. So you want to make sure your farm is neat, looking from the front. And you know what? A lot of us don't really look at, we don't look at our farm from the front. Walk out there. What are guests going to see? Are you going to scare them before they ever come in, or are you going to welcome them? And then, are you going to welcome them? So I like to greet people in person if possible. There are some times when they show up and we're not there, but we've made arrangements beforehand so they know how to check themselves in. We do have signage, written farm facts, you know, how do things work? Where are things? And for overnight guests, we try to take them on a farm tour as soon as they arrive because we want to introduce them to our farm. I call it the danger tour. I will show you something funny in a future slide. But that sets the expectations at the very beginning. And if you do that, it creates a positive experience. Guests can relax. It tends to reduce liability and accidents. I've discovered accidents usually happen within the first 30 minutes of people being on site. And so that danger tour is where can you go? Where can you not go? How should you interact with our animals? How should you be around the farm? Where are the trails? Even where are the light switches in the house? Because a lot of ours are hidden. And so it's different depending on, the size of your operation or the focus on your guests. But this does make people feel comfortable when they arrive. And so we want to make sure that our amenities are there for them. So this is what I like to do. I want to make sure that it's clean and clutter-free. People can kind of imagine themselves being in our house. Good bedding. I've discovered happy guests are ones that have slept well overnight. So good pillows, nice sheets, good mattresses. If you're camping, just clean around the campsite so that people feel like it's theirs. In terms of bathrooms, if you're offering bathrooms, really, really clean. And now I'm talking hotel clean. That's the one place where people will judge you. And then there are the extra little things. We offer luggage racks. I discovered you don't really want people putting their suitcase on your bedspread. So luggage racks work really well. We do have a welcome message for people when they come into the house. And I think fresh flowers inside and out, if you can, if it's not the season for flowers, can you do some other kind of greenery? Farm boots are always appreciated. We get a lot of these left. We have a lot of repeat guests. So we've got all sizes. A lot of them have holes. I point that out to people, but at least it keeps them from getting their sneakers all dirty when they're walking out where the sheep are. Clear communications, with farm rules, chore time, off-limit areas, medical emergency information. This is Touch Stay. This is actually an online guest book, which we use, and our guests get it before they ever come. And so there's lots of other information in here. There's a local area guide, before you leave home, what do you need to think about? Wi-Fi information, just so that people have some idea of what they're getting into. Because you want to manage the expectations and you want to exceed them, it's not that actually hard to exceed expectations because we're on a farm. And it's kind of a wow experience for a lot of people as it is. But there are major concerns for people who've never been on a farm before arrival, what to expect. Is it going to be dirty? And I always like to say, well, it might be muddy outside, but not where you sleep. Is it going to be boring? Well, farms are never boring. For us, the animals are always getting out. There's always something like that. And then the big concern, will they have to work? Here they are paying you money to come. Are we going to make them slave laborers? No, we're not going to do that. They don't want to join us for chores. That's absolutely fine. And we make that very, very clear from the beginning. Sometimes there's a concern about connection, too much connection, not enough connection, and then safety. So we try to just be really clear about what that looks like in the countryside. And then in terms of managing expectations, you need to handle problems immediately. You need to have a plan. I will have to say really quickly that I had guests who stayed with us for one night. I see them standing out in front of the building the next morning. I'm thinking, oh, they're ready for chores early. And they said, no, they had to leave. There had been a mouse in the kitchen. And they all slept in the same bed apparently that night. I immediately found them another place to stay. They had driven a long way to be with us. I found them a place on the coast. It wasn't a farm. I made sure everything was handled for them. And they had friends who booked with us the next week because of how we had handled this. So I might have lost them, but they certainly appreciated the fact that we understood that they were afraid of mice. So you want to treat your guests the way you would want to be treated. Just think about it like that. And in terms of exceeding expectations, Again, it's just the little things that add up. So maybe take that iconic family photo standing in front of the barn. Maybe share recipes of how you use your vegetables that you're offering them. Maybe you have classes. Maybe there are hands-on opportunities. I mean, you can see this little girl is just excited to no end to bottle feed this lamb. Insider recommendations. Not everybody stays on your farm. Where should they go to eat at local restaurants or go to local wineries or things to do, driving routes? And then you want to make sure you have friendly staff and farmers. You know, who are you? Why are you doing this? I mean, it makes a connection. And I think our guests love that connection. We're the face of farming. Think about it. Industrial farms don't have farmers that you'll ever meet. So we're the face. And then in my case, I have fairy houses in the woods. And I also do handwritten thank you notes to people after they've stayed with us. So what makes people want to come back? And you know what? We have guests that have been coming back for 10 or 12 years at this point. We have about a 40% return rate. Their kids enjoyed it. They learned something. They were able to relax. A lot of parents have been taking naps recently. It was better than they expected. It was fun. And they made a connection. So that's why people come back. What if you don't look like me? What if your farm looks different? You know what? It really doesn't matter. Your farm can have 5-star hospitality experience, no matter what you're doing for lodging or what experiences you offer. It's just making that connection. And one really quickly, I just want to do a small plug for Farm Stay here because we want to have time for questions. This is what the site looks like. Again, we are a place where travelers can find farms all over the US. We are just a marketing site. We are not a booking site. This, if you went farther down the page, this is what we promise. That it's if it's on Farm Stay, it's a real farm. It's an authentic working farm. We're not just a farmhouse on a pretty piece of property. We want to promote that connection. We want to make sure that guests get to see what do we do on our farms, you know, and how does that work? And it's good to show them how hard it can be at times so they know why they're paying that fee at the farmer's market. You know, if you go a little farther down our site, dig deeper, we're starting to do a fair number of blogs. When I said this is the danger tour I was talking about right here, because it's something that all of us need to think about. And, you know, travelers can search our site for all different ways, state, regional activities, what animals we offer, what crops we offer, just about anything they can search on. You can't do that on Airbnb. It's all location based. And then these are the results for New York right now. Yes, I know there are a lot more farm stays in New York than this, but this is who we have on right now. And then you'll see on the map, people can click on that, or they can click over here and they can get full information. So this is just the top part of a profile, but this will show what TripAdvisor says about Hello. There'll be an overview, then down below, it'll have the pricing, it'll have the lodging, it'll have more photos, it'll have all the different activities and amenities that this farm offers. And that's, okay, this is for a paid listing. So this is a subscription listing. They're $195 to $395. This is if you just want a free listing. So you still get a link to your website and you get mentioned on the site. So this is what that looks like. If you want to join us or find out who we are, we have a page for that. And then this is that reference material that I mentioned. So you should have access to this after this talk. This is the toolkit right here. And that's it. So I want to thank you. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. I see 2 in the Q&A.